Hi guys, just a follow up on the fuel solenoids for the dual tank setup. Firstly, I decided to simplify things a little bit and only go with two solenoids, mainly because I have to. The main feed lines, I've gone with some one-way valves. That's to the engine from, on my right, from the main tank, from the auxiliary tank. One-way valve in. I pulled them apart, made sure the O-rings were compatible. The springs on there just to take the weight of everything once it's all mounted up under the chassis. In here, there's extra holes drilled in there purely because I had originally decided I was going to rivet it on, but then I thought, well, if it gets, I'm going to have to drill them out if I have to work on the pump or anything. So even though it is a new pump, so I drilled and tapped it and put a couple of bolts in. Solenoid on my left is the return tank to the auxiliary tank. On the right, return to the main tank. That's where it's bolted up in there. 3-pin wires, waterproof 3-pin plug there. You can see that nicely. Yep. Basically, you know, you can't use one-way valves because you've got one in and two outs when they return. So you need to use a solenoid. I did modify these solenoids. They weren't sealed up properly. I've used Sikaflex there to seal them up after I've modified them. They had a 2.5mm orifice, which would restrict flow quite a bit. So what I've done is actually drilled that out to 6mm. Drilled the seat out completely and pressed in a new stainless steel seat with a 5mm hole, which has increased the flow quite dramatically. There's less flow to the return tank, but it's enough, and under 80 psi pressure they still hold shut nicely, and it won't run, but as soon as you click them on they open up and got perfect flow. That's using compressed air and 80 psi. So they work well. I'll go to the front of the car, show you the dash. In the previous video you saw that the relay setup that I had done. Of course, the ignition, I turn the ignition on, the main solenoid comes on. You can hear it clicking on, and then you've got sub tank down here, switches the tanks over. Up underneath, I'll leave the ignition on for the moment. We've got, okay, turn the power off to the ignition. Okay, bear with me here please, so that I try and get the camera in the right position with a bit of light without getting confused again. You can see up in there, there's the two relays. Down a bit. And then you've got the 8-pin relay there. You can see, I don't know if it'll focus on it for me, but you've got, yeah, there we go. You can see the side and the spring wire clip that I made to hold it up there in place. It's working quite well, does the job. I'm very happy with it. And the wiring down the side, down there. There's a bit more wiring here to do. It's for the roof line, nothing to do with the fuel lines. Lights the roof. Okay, so yeah, but when I turn auxiliary fuel on, you see the LEDs come on for the crossover relay, which is for the fuel tank sender gauge and fuel light, and then the other two for the solenoids and pumps, switches one pump on and one pump off. Okay. So basically what happens is that at rest, when the ignition's, when the sub tank switch is off, It goes through the 87A pins on the relays so that they're at rest, circuit is closed, and you end up with your regular fuel pump and fuel solenoid coming on, and the fuel gauge, and as you can see there, it's lit up now, the fuel warning light. When I switched on the thing, the crossover, it's just gone off because it's just switched over to this auxiliary tank. That'll come back on, that's empty as well, and give it a minute to energize. Fuel gauge standard on dash 1, no extra fuel gauges to worry about it, no extra pumps to worry about, just throw the switch and I'm automatically running directly over on a completely separate tank with a completely separate system. And give it a second there. Less clutter, a little bit more underneath, and there you go. There she comes on now. From one tank to the other. So I hope that helps anybody who's thinking of doing it. A little more mucking around to have two separate pumps. It is a lot easier just to have a transfer pump with a timed relay. Just push the button and pumps from one tank to the other. But I wanted to have two separate systems for redundancy. Everything's up out of the way, hidden away. All you see is one switch on the dash, and there you go. All good. Thank you for watching.